Alright, and welcome back to the channel, everybody, and I hope you're doing fine. Today we're gonna try to make a diorama for my Army on Parade contest. We are a little bit under pressure though, because I have only, I would say, 2 weeks to finish the whole thing. And I wanna build something with resin, and resin needs to cure, and some other stuff that needs to cure maybe overnight or even 48 hours. So we better get going. Should you be curious what kind of materials I'm using, I'm gonna list everything in the description below.
Let's get started. Day 1, getting in shape.
Every diorama starts with an idea. So what do I want to do here? My Army on Parade is Slaves to Darkness from Age of Sigmar, and they are 100% cavalry. I want them to rush down the mountains, the hills, and then invade the lands of the living. I think that would be cool. In my opinion, every diorama should have a couple points of interest. I would say for the size of this board, 3 is a good number. Since I'm lacking now a little bit of time, it has to be something simple. I want to have a little ruin where I can put my sorceress. Then, and I think that would be cool, a cliff. And a bridge is going over it with a river underneath it. Now, this also means that we will need a lot of this stuff right here. Because we have to lift the whole scene. Because how the hell am I supposed to make a cliff on a flat board? That doesn't work. I personally think that people underrate the planning phase when they make a diorama. So what I did is I cut out replacement bases. So an S for my sorceress, a G for my general, my knights, my vanguards, and my marauder riders. See? Now, why don't you just use the regular bases? You need this so you know where you can put your points of interest. Now, with my idea, there's just one challenge. A trench/cliff or like a canyon that needs space, and you can't put any models in the canyon. So the canyon will be something like this. Then we have here the lands of the living. And then I have that much space for my army. And as you can see already, this is full with replacement bases. So the ruin will be something like that. We're gonna have here the mountainside, the hills, or maybe another small cliff from where they come. Maybe even a portal. This would be something that I will try in the future maybe, because a portal takes a little bit more time. A ruin is simple. Still looks nice if you do it correct. Let's see if I can do that, but a portal just takes too much time. And the bridge will probably be, together with the riverbed, the most annoying part. On top of that, you have to keep in mind everything needs to be accessible once everything dried and ready for painting and for curing the resin. Painting in a canyon is something that I don't want to do. So I was thinking about gluing this part here once the riverbed is done and then build the other stuff. A little bit risky because once your riverbed is done, I kind of have to protect it from the rest of this piece, because otherwise you have the same issue as if I would use, you know, my real models here. Stuff might get dirty or might even break. And some of you will probably wonder, why the hell do you have such a thick board/base for your diorama? Isn't that overkill? And you're not wrong. If I would build this diorama at home and I would never ever move it again, this is way too much. However, I have to move this whole piece to my local Games Workshop store because the Army on Parade will be presented over there. So I want something sturdy where I know if I move this, nothing will budge. On top of that, I'm gonna use some materials that are wet while you're forming it, like for example the resin for the riverbed. And in my experience, when that stuff dries and your base is not hard enough, not solid enough, the base will bend while the stuff cures and dries. And then your whole piece is ruined. If I have cliffs over here, how should the cliffs look like? For the cliff, kind of simple, you just Google some stuff and take Mother Nature as reference material. For the bridge, a little bit more complicated, and you know, you can go crazy with that, but again, I have probably 10 days where I can craft here, and today is day 1, so let's see what we can do. Now, I'm gonna have the bridge more over here and not exactly in the middle. That leaves us with some creativity that we can use for the riverbed right here. If I put the bridge right in the middle, then I can't do anything big on either side. So we're gonna have our bridge then probably, keep in mind we have the border of the bridge as well. We're gonna do something like probably this. And maybe I will put some guards over here, so I need at least something like this for the cliffside. And this already shows the proportions of the bridge. They're gonna be massive. Now I don't wanna have this too static, so we're not gonna draw just lines. We're gonna do it something like this. The next thing that we're gonna need is the river itself. That will probably be quite linear, so we're gonna have something like this. This is gonna be the final river bed. Okay, and then the bridge goes maybe like this. Honestly, a bridge that is like a cube or like a square is not that great. It will look kind of meh. The further it goes in both directions, the more impressive it will look like. So the canyon might end here and end here, like we have like this is the canyon then, but the bridge will go a little bit more further inland. We can maybe do some stones, like a paved street or something like that. And then again, cliff over here. Then we're also gonna do the cliff here. And that leaves us with maybe some rock formations that we can do here. Then over here we're gonna have a ruin. Maybe we have a building that looks something like this, you know, maybe an old tavern or something like this. Nice. And we're gonna place our sorcerers here. We have enough room here for the riders to come around the corner. And maybe we have a little bit of an elevated position here where I can place my vanguards. So this is gonna be now a little bit tough, and this is why I like having these bases, because it will tell you when you're not leaving enough space. So these guys will probably come around here, around the tavern, following our general and maybe our monster. And that means we can from here, like that. We're gonna move this line a bit more here. In this area will be where we go up our hill. The rest, I think I will keep it flat. Maybe we can put the tavern a little bit on an elevated position. But then again, this is gonna be maybe too much. Maybe I put the tavern even a little bit on the lower ground. I don't know yet, but something like this. And we have the bridge here. We have streets here and here. And you know what? Maybe we go with the bridge, with the paved area, and it's maybe going something like that. I don't know if we will have time for this. Next thing is that I want to have half of this snow, then some snow patches maybe, and then here it's going to be green, because we have an ice-themed army, and I think it will look cool when we show this, that the army is bringing the frost. Okay, rough planning, rough sketching is done. I think it's time and start building our diorama. I have here these wonderful things here. Keep in mind, everything that I'm using, I'm gonna put a list of the materials in the description below. Now, how do we cut this? You can of course cut this with your, regular knife, but that is kind of annoying. I have this right here. So you can heat this up and it will melt. I tested it here already, it works pretty well. It will melt the foam. Now, I don't need to tell you this. This is toxic as fuck, all right? I did it once and I had a massive headache without one of these. So get a respirator, they're not that expensive. And honestly, if you commit a little bit more to the hobby, if you use airbrushing, if you work with some crazy varnishes or glues or maybe some epoxy, you need one of these. There is no way around. Also, I don't have a lot of time to build during the day because I'm doing this as a hobby and this is not my job. So working outside sometimes doesn't work because right now it's 11:30 p.m. Yeah, it would be weird if I sit outside there and melt foam. So we're gonna do this inside. I'm gonna open the windows and then we're gonna start assembling this piece.
Yeah, and I think you can already see the reason why you should normally do this outside. But not everybody has the place and the room to do so, so we're gonna work like this. Also, if I lose any more time, any more days, yeah, that's not gonna be good. So let's get started.
And by the way, make sure that your smoke sensors are turned off. Now, I said already before, you can do this with a knife, and it might even be faster, but melting the foam has the big advantage that you don't have any tiny pieces flying around. Next step is gluing everything on the board. Now, keep in mind, well, all your sketches will be gone, so take a picture beforehand so you know how you planned everything out. The whole board gets a nice coat of glue, and then we slap the first board on it. Keep in mind everything's properly aligned, and if there is somewhere a bend, put some weight on it.
Okay, so we have now 2 layers of this foam here, and we're getting already some good height. We need this because once we're cutting the canyon, well, if we don't have any height, then that will look kind of crap. Also, the higher this thing becomes, I think the more awesome it will look. Anything that is wet and then hardens in the process will bend material somewhere. Here's one of my, well, failed products, I would say, where I tried to do a modular gaming table. And I worked here with a lot of resin, and the resin kind of bent this whole foam. This is like very light foam that I was using, and that was not the right material. So either glue this on some very thin wood to give it more strength, or just do a different method, because you can see probably, yeah, this thing is bent into oblivion, and I will have to redo this, and maybe I'll make a video about modular tables, who knows. Remember when I said I wanted this to be placed later, so I would have an easier time working on the riverbed? Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. So we're just gonna roll with it and hope for the best, and pray to the painting gods and crafting gods that this will not massively backfire. Other people can do it, but I'm not on the skill level from other people, so yeah. We're gonna cut out now these parts here, also the middle part, and then we go back to the hot wire. All right, let's go.
So I did a quick sketch on all of the boards and then slowly cut out everything with the hot wire. This takes a while, but honestly, right here, you definitely have the advantage with the hot wire, because with the knife getting all these curves in, that would be quite a problem. And then we glue everything together.
Alrighty then. Okay, this is where we are right now after day 1, evening 1. So far, it's now 2 AM. So I worked roughly 4 hours from like the concept phase to this. We need to weight this though a little bit, because you can see this is not always working perfectly, so gonna put some boxes on that. I like this. So we have a little bit of overlapping stuff here. That is totally fine though. We have plenty of space here to still do something with this. Maybe we have some stone formations here. We're gonna have the river here. That will be a little bit difficult. I'm a little bit worried about this area here. Otherwise, this is looking good. We're gonna put the rune up here. Did I just move this? Nah, it's okay. So the Varun Guards are coming up here. The rune with the sorceress comes here, general here, followed by the Chaos Knights. Then I have in the back the Marauder Horseman, and then I have my beast sitting either here, or maybe it's already going across. So what I did here though, from a cinematic point of view, with these 2 pieces of foam, I elevated this area a bit. I'm doing this because I want this side to look bigger and more threatening. So having something on higher ground, yes, Anakin would be mad, then you can have a little bit of influence how this whole piece feels for the viewer. So if this would be lower, and I have the chaos units here, yeah, I don't know. I think they should be on the higher ground. These 2 are the same height. Honestly, from my position, this looks higher, but they are the same height. And with this and this, they're basically looking down on that. Now tomorrow I'm gonna cut out this area, and I'm gonna give the cliff a little bit more of a cliff feeling. Maybe we can do here a little shore together with a cave. And of course, I touched the 1 piece of PVA glue that is over there, leaking out of that. Yeah, sure. Why the hell not? Okay, but I'm happy with the first day. And yeah, let's see what we can do tomorrow.
Day 2. Welcome to the quarry.
Okay, so we have day 2 now. This dried completely and this is super solid right now. I'm really happy with this. Now, next thing that we have to do is carving out the structure of the diorama. What I mean by that is this looks weird, right? This doesn't look natural and we want something that is a little bit closer to that. So I'm gonna use now my knife, but I'm also gonna use my hot wire to basically carve some rocky structure or like any structure that is not looking like this or like this, and then I hope it will be fine. Now, this is of course not the best hot wire that you can use. You normally have one that is U-shaped, but that thing broke. And well, it's Saturday tonight, and I just have to deal with the tools that I have right now. So I'm aware this is not ideal, but I hope this will still be fun. We're gonna carve out the riverbed with the rock structure, and then also will hopefully build small rock formations that we can place here then. Let's go.
Remember when I said, man, I hope this is gonna be fun? Yeah, I lied to myself quite a bit. I'm using the knife and the hot wire stick to give everything this rocky structure. I said it already a billion times, and it was a super painful process. And you probably remember when I said, hey, carving this riverbed will be really bad once everything is glued together if I have both hills attached. Getting everything out of the canyon, there was a lot of material. And honestly, the second layer of foam that I glued on the board, yeah, that needed to be pre-cutted before glued on that piece. That would have saved me a lot of time. So I used the leftover material, and there was a lot, and cut some tiny rock structures, glued them together, and I gave it a little bit more stability by using toothpicks.
Okay, and we are done now with day 2. I'm actually recording the ending of day 2 on day 3, but hey. And all the carving is done. Additionally, I also added some rocks. You can see these rock towers. They are connected with toothpicks and just regular PVA glue. Also here, everything is now okay, maybe I'm not touching these, but everything is super hardened now. I added some rocks here, over there, gave this a little bit of a rocky structure. I carved the cliff with the knife. I added a little cave here, you're gonna see that later. I have an idea what we're gonna do with this. I carved the riverbed, and that was not fun. Carving the riverbed, if you don't have that U-shaped wire tool, is just bad. Sadly, it was a weekend, so I couldn't buy a new one. And I didn't have the materials to just quickly make my own one at home. So there's that. So you have to carve everything with the goddamn knife. And the hot wire stick that I have over there. And it was such a pain. That was such a pain. I would say probably 5 to 6 hours just the carving and adding these rocks. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna clean up the piece because I have everywhere these tiny debris here, and of course I don't want to have that. And yeah, then we go to day 3.
Let's dive into day 3, rock and stone.
Okay, everything is cleaned up now, everything should be dry. So what I'm gonna do next is, well, I'm gonna use this stuff here. And I just realized I actually have no English on this one. German, French, Dutch, what the hell? Okay, so I think you call this speckle. It's like for when you repair your walls. Why am I using this though? I know there's stuff like sculptor mold, and I actually ordered that. I hope it will come in time. And with sculptor mold, I will have all the flat surfaces to give this some, you know, life, some structure. But I really like how this dries. So this speckle here, we're gonna use that. And I'm gonna put that on the cliffs and everywhere where I wanna have rocks. Once that dries, the structure it will have will be amazing for just painting and dry brushing and giving you some very simple rock imitation. Most likely you can do this in a better way, but time is of the essence and I don't have any more time left. This can dry until tomorrow. So all the rocks need to be covered in this. I have 2 of these things here and I hope it's gonna be enough because I'm gonna work with the riverbed with some resin, and the resin takes a long time to cure. We're talking here about 24 hours. It even says like 36 on that one. And depending on the epoxy that you have, you can't have it too high. So this one here, it says Rapido, so let's see if it's actually Rapido. And you can have that, it should be hard after 24 and after 36 hours completely dry. So I'm losing 1.5 days, probably 2 days, just by waiting for that to cure. I will try to work on the piece while the resin is curing. However, that's always a little bit risky because if something falls into the resin while it's waiting to dry, you're fucked. Because no way you can redo this, so rip. This resin here, I can have a thickness of 2 centimeters, so let's see how that will go. Okay, I would say we get started, and we're gonna cover all these rock surfaces with this.
Okay, so I used various tools to just apply the speckle evenly across the whole model. And yeah, that almost beat the time from cutting everything out. Getting the speckle into the cave in all these recesses with the towers already glued on the board was slightly a pain, but we managed to do it. Also, I collected literally dirt from the garden and put it on the wet speckle and pushed it into the speckle. I wanted to save some time because normally you put the solution of PVA glue and water in the riverbed, then you put the dirt in it, and then you dry it, and then you seal it with another layer of PVA glue mixed with water. But I tried to save some time. And with that, another day was over. A massive day is coming up, day 4. Paint for the paint god.
Okay, so we're at the beginning of day 4. Let's just summarize real quick what I did yesterday, day 3, because I didn't show you that yet. So everything is covered now with this putty, this speckle. And that took probably 5 to 6 hours. And I went through this thing here, and almost through this thing. So yeah, I'm happy this is not too expensive. Today, we're gonna do some painting. I also checked with my improvised bases here if I still have enough space for the minis. And I fucked up here a little bit. The Vanguards up here, they don't have enough space. So one of them will probably be very close to the rocks, and there's still some stuff coming on it for the terrain, so might get a little bit dicey over here. But otherwise, I collected some dirt from my garden and just put it on here. So you can see that there's even a little twig here. I have some rocks, and I put that into the putty while it's hardening. So most of it should be glued now on that thing here. However, some of it will move while we paint. The cool thing is, when you look at the rocks, that with the putty you actually kinda manage to have a flow between the foam and the rocks. Before, it just looks like, okay, this is like glued on it, and now it looks like combined with the whole piece. These rocks here, I'm not super satisfied. I think they look okay-ish. They will probably look way better once we paint them. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of my improvised bases now. Okay, just one thing before we start painting, clean this. So I actually vacuumed over some of the parts, not all of them, because I know if I'm gonna vacuum over the dirt, I will take way more stones with it than I actually like, because they're not super hard glued in there. That will not be a big problem once the resin is put on it, obviously, and once we seal everything shut at the end. Okay, next we're gonna need some paint. So we're gonna use paint like that, and we're also gonna use some paint like this. Nice. Okay, and here we go. Let's have a look at the paints. So this is your regular, I don't know, full color, something that you can thin down. This is exactly what we're gonna do. It also should have quite the amount of pigments in it, so even if you water it down, it shouldn't be too bad. The idea is for the riverbed, I will go with dark brownish, so we're gonna use this here. And we're gonna alternate between this mixed with some red. I think that will look cool. And we can also do some light brown. Maybe we're gonna have the light brown going up before we hit the rocks. On the other hand, I honestly want everything here to be in the rock color. I have black, and I have also, these are my pots that are almost empty, so I have some green here for later. And I have this one here, and it's anthracite. That's the color. So it's not really black, it goes more into a grayish. I would like to try that out. At the end, we're gonna dry brush everything with some gray and some white. So no big deal there. And I would say we get this started because this will most likely take a while. What I'm not going to show you is that I have also here some sand, like regular ass sand. I'm going to mix that with the colors to give it more structure. Because there are some surfaces that are still kind of flat, kind of smooth. And I don't think I want that. I'm kind of happy with how the putty turned out here. It is a little bit sharp here and there. So like here, for example, if something stands out massively, I just snap it off. Okay, before people are wondering, Mike, you have nothing here on these flat surfaces. Why? Good question. First of all, here I'm going to place the bridge. Same with these two sides here. And I want that to be smooth, so I will not have any issues with putting the bridge on it. Next thing is I ordered some modeling compound that I would like to try, because normally I do everything with this putty, but for these big surfaces, that is kind of an issue. For small bases, works totally fine, and I take normally some cork, but can't do it really here. So I hope the modeling compound will be here very soon. You know why I'm not getting this? Because of Brexit. And I have issues getting that from UK to Austria. So whoever voted for the Brexit, thank you. I mean, it's totally your fault and not my procrastination. No, it's all your fault. I'm flawless. And once this modeling compound is here, we're gonna do the rest. It's not that big of a deal though, because I need to finish the bridge and this wall building here. Dude, where do I wanna place a tavern here? I have no idea. Okay, mixing the colors, and then we start painting.
Let's start with a heart attack. This is my anthracite. It looks like metal. Well, we're still gonna try this. We're gonna take some sand, some brown, and a tiny bit of red, mix it together with quite some water, stir very good, and now I have this beautiful dark reddish brown mud color. I'm gonna apply that all across my riverbed. To be honest, I took a little bit too much water. Not a big issue if I have enough time, because you just wait until it dries, but for me that was actually quite the issue later. There was a fun step, honestly, just do the stippling motion there. Then I tried the silver black and, well, at first I liked it and I put it, well, where it made sense, right? Everywhere where the wall was cracked and where we had some recesses.
Okay, so the first coat for the riverbank is done. I also have this anthracite or whatever you want to call that now on the rocks. And I don't know, it's a fantasy world, okay, so it might be okay, but it is very bright. And even though I mixed it thoroughly, kind of translucent, so I don't know if this will work out. I'm gonna do the rest definitely in black, and then with the dry brushing, I hope it will blend together. I'm nervous. I might have ruined it. There was an experiment, and the moment I started going, and this is the nasty part, it looks way darker, and the moment it dries, it becomes brighter. So I started, and I was like, oh, this is nice. And then one side started to dry, and I'm like, well, this is not nice. I mean, it's not bad. Don't get me wrong. And we are far from finished, so what do I know? So I'm gonna do now the black. Also, by the way, way too much paint for the riverbed, but I probably will do a second coat once the first one is dry, so it's not that bad. And for now, I'm gonna do the black.
Yeah, the black is really straightforward, not much to explain here. I tried not to hit too much of the silver, but I tried also to blend together, and there is just so much surface. So although the step is easy, it took me quite a while.
Okay, and this is now after, I would say, 3 hours, close to 3 hours. I'm done with all the painting. You can see stuff is still wet. No, I am actually kind of happy how the two blacks, or like the metallic gray and the regular black, are interacting with each other. That is not too bad. So what I have to do though is a second coat for the riverbed. Also what I realized is that a lot of the putty did not dry properly yet, which is a huge issue. Because painting over that is A, ruining your brush, and B, yeah, it will just not dry when you put wet paint on it. So normally I would let this dry for probably a day, but I don't have the time. It's simple as that. So the few spots that were still you know, not completely hardened, I painted over that. So yeah, I would say normally the moment I realized that the putty is not completely dried, give it a day. I finished this yesterday night and I started today morning. So there was only like 8 hours maybe for drying, and that was not enough. Some areas were dry, but where I went a little bit overboard with the putty, it was still wet or still moist. What you gonna do? Now, what do I have to do? I have to let this dry now. Then I have to dry brush it. We're gonna go with gray and then with white for the rock. With the riverbed, I like this muddy color that I have. I have to do a second coat. And on top of that, I will do then a little bit more black in the brown and do that in the middle of the riverbed. Once we have that, I will most likely do some, you know, some scenic sand and stuff like that, and then glue this in place. The issue is, I actually didn't want to do that because applying the glue, then the sand, then you have to seal this. It's another step that has to dry, and I don't have the time for that. I wanted to start with the resin tonight. No way. No way. I have to do this tomorrow. And the putty really needs to be completely dry before I do that. So I was a little bit optimistic here with my planning. And I also need to 3D print a lot of accessories because we're gonna have the tavern here, the bridge here, and I want some plants. I'm gonna 3D print this. So 3D printing today, hopefully getting the riverbed and the rocks dry brushed and everything. Oh, this is gonna be, it's gonna be one massive project for today. Let's see, I would say the riverbed is kinda dry. So I'm gonna go over it with a second coat. I still have enough of color here. I'm gonna do that, then I'll let that dry, pour in the little bit of black that I have still left and do this in the middle of the riverbed to give this a little bit more depth. Then I put this outside. It's sunny, so it might help. We have October right now, so it's not that hot. And then once this is dry, I'm gonna start the dry brushing process. That should be easy. Both steps, so gray and white. I think I can do that today. And also the sand. That would be nice. 3D printing, I can do this over the afternoon. It's lunchtime right now. But I also need to paint the plants. The resin has to be poured in tomorrow, one way or the other. Yeah, dude. Miniature crafting and all this diorama building is fun if you have enough time. But let's save some time, shut the fuck up and get painting.
Honestly, the hairdryer was my best friend today. I applied a second coat, then I mixed a tiny bit of black into my mud color and put it into the middle part of the brown area to give the whole thing the illusion of a deeper riverbed.
Okay, we're still day 4, evening, and I have one issue. So 2 things that I need to solve today. First thing, this is still not dry. So we have to solve this. I went very liquid with the color and probably too liquid, I would have to say, because you need it liquid enough that it's going into all the recesses, which is difficult with the dried putty. But it also needs to dry at one point so I can continue working. So normally you leave this overnight, easy peasy. Second challenge that we have is I'm not happy with the riverbed. It's not rocky enough. So what I should have done is do this with some PVA glue, then put the rocks on it, and then seal this with even more PVA glue and then paint this. So what I do have is this right here. So I have still a little bit more dirt that I could place on that. And I could go a little bit stupid. First we're gonna dry this, then PVA glue, then the rocks. Then we let that dry. Then we're gonna use isopropyl alcohol to break the surface tension. Then again, we're gonna put some scenic glue on it. And that should do the trick. That would be the proper way to do it, by the way, if you would have more time. While the glue is drying, I'm gonna do dry brushing on the rocks with gray and with white. I have a couple grays here and a couple whites here. Sadly, normally I'd use these little pots here and had one for gray and one for white. I have one more with silver gray and I have this. This is what I use when I paint my bases. So I have Stonewall Gray here, game color from Vallejo.
And I have Blanco Dead White, also game color from Vallejo, for all this, which will obviously not work. So I'm gonna mix that color, see how silver that silver gray actually is. Otherwise, I'm gonna take the stone gray and try to get as far as I can. Now keep in mind, with dry brushing, you don't really need a lot of paint, because you actually don't want a lot of paint, but for such a massive piece, it might still be an issue. But first things first, we need some drastic measures to dry this. Getting the right consistency for this PVA water mix is difficult. It has to be runny enough that you hit all recesses, but also not too moist, otherwise it takes forever to dry. The dry brushing was probably the most chill part of the whole project. I just enjoy doing that. Additionally, finally the rocks look like rocks.
Okay, so it's now almost 1 AM. So I did 2 hours of dry brushing. But you can finally see, I'm gonna show you a close-up in a second, how the dry brushing with the putty and the black and the gray and everything gives you finally this rocky structure. And what I do like is that the silver is still there, but it's totally blended now. Same up here, standing in my own light. You can see that. Back there as well, with the towers. Yeah, dude, this is looking decent. Happy with that one. We're not fully done though, because on the gray, I'm gonna go now with the white. By the way, I took the silver gray out of the can, so my Vallejo game color is saved. But I actually didn't need a lot of color. I think this little thing here would have been more than enough, but it would have been quite the waste for dry brushing a diorama, not to put it on minis. I'm gonna use the white though, because it's the only one that I have left. And with this one, I'm gonna be very careful. I'm gonna do another dry brush cycle, but really just for the top edges, to give it a little bit more sharpness. And then we are done with the initial paint job. Although, no, actually with the paint job for the rocks here, we are done. As you can see, my glue is still drying there in the riverbed. And with these additional rocks, it looks so much better. I don't know if I'm gonna give this another layer of my dark brown. I might. I'm also gonna dry brush the edges of the river with probably this brown here. And let's see how it goes. Candy brown. It's funny, the other one is called Choco Brown. And it might have to blend everything a little bit together. Let's see.
I personally think dry brushing with white is a must. It gives the rock more definition, the edges are way sharper, and I absolutely love it. Also, it blends the black and the silver more together. And yeah, the usual, I'm drying everything and I'm just watching some StarCraft tournaments because this is boring.
Alright, so I think I'm getting pretty close to the end of day 4. So the rocks are completely done. Happy with those. Especially with the tiny rocks, the dirt that we got from outside, putting it in there, in the little cracks, it really sells the piece. So what I think I will do, once this layer of glue dries, I'm gonna use the alcohol to break the surface tension. Then, again, the glue. Then I'm gonna let it dry until tomorrow. I have like this kelp stuff 3D printed that I would like to have in there. I don't know if I want that actually due to time, but it would be nice to have it. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm not gonna put it in the whole riverbed. I'm gonna make some sections where the water is gonna be a little bit higher, the riverbed a little bit deeper. I will place a couple. These in the water and maybe these as plants at the riverbed. Also means I have to dry this now with my UV lamp. Then I have to base coat it and then I have to paint it. Honestly, I was thinking about something fancy, making them red, making them pink, purple. You can go wild, you're living in a fantasy world here. But honestly, I'm just gonna make this green, one wash at max, dry brush, edge highlighting, and then I just put it on a piece due to the time pressure. Yeah, all right, then We did quite some work today. Lots of hours put in. I actually don't know how many, but a lot. And I have to do some work now over there for my job actually. And I see you guys then tomorrow with day 5.
Day 5, getting hard with epoxy.
Okay, so day 5 now, finally. Most of the glue dried, and I like how this looks. And we have here some beautiful little pieces of terrain. So I have some vegetation here that I will place at the border, maybe down here where the earth and the rock is meeting. And I have also some kelp that I will place in the deeper areas that will basically be submerged in the resin. Okay, so I'm gonna show you now a little bit what I painted and printed. It is super basic, okay? So this is just because of time pressure. Base coat, dry brush, done. Okay, so here I have all this painted stuff with the kelp and also the regular tiny vegetation. Yeah, okay, so you can see the base coat, dry brush. On the kelp I made these like green dots as a highlight. Otherwise I have some brighter painted branches and also the bigger ones. The bigger ones are darker. Okay, so the idea is the bigger ones, they're old, so they are a little bit darker, and you can see here, so this is like a fresh leaf. So the small one's brighter and the bigger one's darker. Okay, I'm dry brushing now all the rocks. And honestly, what you could do if you want to is to paint the single rocks first. Give them maybe their own unique highlight color. That would also look pretty amazing. But I know I'm gonna sound like a broken record. Time is of the essence here. I'm just telling you at home how you could do it. And my next terrain piece will definitely have more time scheduled for all of this. Okay, so here we are, and I have to say, I am quite sad. So let's have a look.
Okay, the kelp first. I think it looks great. I like the color scheme. Also like the little extra green dots as a highlight, but there is just not enough. Look at the entry points of the canyon. There should be way more. This will probably get lost in the end. And if we check the riverbank, we can see that I placed some plants there. That was actually kind of nice. I like them. But the same issue right here, if this autofocuses, I hope it works. It's just not enough. The vegetation is just poor. And it would need way more. Keep in mind that I have the plants only on the right side, because on the left side we're gonna have all the ice. And again, pretty happy with the dry brushing of the rocks and with the walls.
One thing that I could have done is move the kelp maybe, that it's not exactly on the opposite. Maybe move it a little bit more into the piece. But those are the lowest points, or the deepest points, let's put it that way. So the resin will pour into there nicely. I have multiple resins. I have this one here, and it's like glass clear epoxy resin art. All of these are 2-component resins. The crazy thing is, and this is where I'm a little bit skeptical, I have this one here, and this is made for if you want to have a little bit deeper. It's telling you though, if it's more than 2 centimeters, which we might have here, you should do multiple layers, which is okay, that's how you should do it. But the drying time on this one is 24 to 36 hours. And I have this one here, and what I don't understand is, it says for, and this is cool, I mean you won't see this, it's showing you how long it will take until it's completely hardened. And it says you can work with this at 23 degrees Celsius at 120 minutes. That's it. That's like 2 hours. This can't be. It says the complete dry time though is like 15 hours, so 24 hours. So I'm not gonna touch any of these resins before it's not completely hardened, because I did that once. Also, pro tip, if you work with resin, always have a respirator, wear gloves. This shit is not good for you. Additionally, always seal off these areas where the resin can pour out. Wherever there is a place that the resin can pour out, seal that shut with glue, tape, whatever. It has to be absolutely waterproof. So we don't want to be the guy who is working on a diorama and has epoxy over the weekend in the garage to harden out, and then he comes back after the weekend and realizes that the epoxy is all over the garage floor, and then you spend the next couple days with a lot of crying and a lot of pain to clear that up. Yeah, oddly specific, isn't it?
And when I say seal that shut, I mean it. So I PVA glued some tape there, then I have some hard plastic glued on it, and at the end I even had some hot glue at the side to make this absolutely foolproof. I made one mistake with resin in the past, that's not gonna happen again. Afterwards we put everything together and then we mix it well. Read the instructions carefully because this might take a while. Sometimes you even have to let the resin rest a little bit for the bubbles to get out. Afterwards, and this is something that I absolutely enjoy doing, put the resin into your riverbed. At the end I'm using a blowtorch to get rid of the bubbles on the surface. Also a very fun process, just don't burn your diorama.
Okay, alright, so the resin is poured. It didn't really work out the way I wanted it though. The resin reacted weirdly, but we're gonna talk about that tomorrow. I have a couple more hours. It's currently midnight, and I spent the last half an hour with a little bit of research on my bridge. Should look like. I'm not good at drawing. And the idea is that I take these foam plates and I try to basically have the skeleton of the bridge, and then I will use these bricks right here to mimic a real bridge made out of stone.
I truly love my foam cutter machine. It's a very chill work. Again, don't forget your respirator and open the windows if you have to work inside. I follow my notes, cut everything out. I have some bigger parts of the skeleton of the bridge that supports everything, and I also have the tiny bricks. I already had some cut out back in the days, so I could save some time there. I made some bigger ones and some smaller ones to give the bridge a little bit more texture. Alright, let the chaos begin. Day 6. Absolute failure.
Okay, and we have a new day. The resin cured, but I'm pretty effing sad, honestly. I have a lot of bubbles in there. And it's weird because I mixed the resin properly. I even let it stand around for a while to, you know, for the bubbles to rise up. What you have to do every now and then when you work with resin, there will be bubbles. So you have a little blowtorch and you put it on the resin. Like from a distance, obviously, you don't want to scorch your piece here. Now, I never used this resin though, and it's insane. It got really, really hot. And that was weird because it says it needs 24 hours to harden. This is rock solid and it's like 12 hours maybe? And honestly, that part over there where I have all the bubbles, that hardened in like a couple hours. I think something went wrong here, and I think it's the airflow that happened, sadly. I think there were some cracks. Like this resin here produced a lot of heat while hardening, so I couldn't touch the area over there. You can also see that this here is sadly a little bit bent. And I think that damaged the riverbed, and there were some cracks, and the air from the foam entered the resin. Because I could see the air coming out of the riverbed in like tiny air streams in the resin. So it created effing bubbles. Now I can't fix this, luckily, because we're gonna have ice on the river. Of course I don't want the whole river covered in ice, and right here I didn't want to have any ice because the ice is coming from this side going over here. So with the bubbles over there we just have to do the frost effect over there. So some dudes might say this is overkill here, but honestly you can see that the resin tried to leak here. So I think it went through the foam plates in the cracks of the riverbed and tried to get through the foam plates and exit at the bottom, which is crazy because if you remember we glued the foam plates together. Maybe I just need more glue. And you can see here all the bubbles in the riverbed. That is bad. That's how it should be. That is nice. A+. This is a failure. And you can, I don't know if you see this on camera, you can actually see the little air canals coming from the riverbed that formed these bubbles. Now, of course, I tried to burst most of them, but at one point I have to go to sleep. And that was the last build-up over the last couple days. Yeah, that is great. And the bridge. So we're gonna have a massive project today, and I started already with the skeleton of the bridge. I think it goes something like this. There we go. So you can see it's already a little bit too big. Also, it's not fitting 100%. That's okay because my sculptor mold should come today. So I will have to use a little bit more spackle and fuse the pieces, but that's okay. I'm not too worried about this. What I am worried about though is I want to have some stone arcs here. And the issue is that this pillar here is way too short. Like, you need a higher pillar so you can have a nice arc. But I can't do that right now. I can do it here, but I think it would look insanely weird over there because you would have an arc super wide and not very high. I will try it. It will probably look like crap though. Okay, so I tried to copy the arc here, and the issue is that the moment we do this, without getting the bridge too high, we will have a super squished arc already on this side where we have the smaller gap. So with the bigger gap, the arc would even look weirder. So, hate to say it, but the arc idea has to die.
With the arc idea out of the window, I just went for a regular ass bridge. Honestly, not the biggest drama. I think it will still look nice. It's a crap ton of work though. You have to cut all these stones, realign them. You can of course just, you know, some people just paint it on it, but it does not give the thing the same feeling and the same structure, and not the same texture. I'm also using PVA glue again. For most of my stuff I use PVA glue, because honestly with a hot glue pistol, that stuff is just too thick and it's just getting too messy. This right here was a painful process. I don't know why, sometimes I have dumb ideas. So I split these bricks into thirds and then use these thin pieces to make like a street on the bridge. Everything needs to be aligned properly. If this is not completely straight, it will look weird. Don't take too much glue, otherwise the glue will leak out of the recesses. Yeah, the result honestly was decent. I melted off the ramps. Don't worry, I sandpapered them down even more before I applied my little bricks there. Not gonna lie though, the bricks alone just for the street took me an hour or two.
Okay, and this is what I came up with. It's okay, it's super far away from what I actually want to have. It's not completely done, but I want to show you now what I have so far. So after hours and hours of work, what I do like is that we have a very irregular structure on that thing. That is cool, and I think this is also very important because otherwise it looks like just painted on it. And I'm very pleased with the street actually. So I got rid of all of this, sanded it down a little bit, and then had this on top of it. I also got my modeling compound stuff, so that's nice. So we can integrate it hopefully tomorrow. What I'm gonna do right now is, because as you can see, this is very smooth, right? So you have all these cracks here. You're gonna use now some tin foil. Wrap that into a ball. What we're gonna do now is gently roll that over the surface and maybe even, do something like this. We're also gonna do it here. I hope the camera can show this. That you will basically give the whole thing more structure. You know, I'm a little bit afraid to push really hard because I glued this today, like a couple hours ago. But you can already see. Oh yeah, with the big one I can show it. So I'm gonna use this and roll it over it, and it's giving you like this texture effect. I hope the camera can catch this. And with that I'm gonna do this on the whole model. As you can see, I skipped this because you really have to dive into the diorama to actually see that. So we're gonna give this now a structure. It's gonna be nice. And then painting process like the rocks, honestly. So I'm gonna paint this black, a little bit watered down so it goes into the cracks together with sand to give it even more of this rocky texture. And then let's see how it looks. We're gonna dry brush it again in gray. Then I'm gonna dry brush it in white. And let's see.
So I go over the whole bridge, give it this nice structure that we so desire, and I would not skip this step, ever. It's really worth it. Next I'm gonna do the ice shots, so I have some UV resin here that I poured. I have it on a crumbled baking sheet, spread out, use the blowtorch to get rid of the bubbles, use my UV lamp to harden it, I peel it off, and voila, ice shards that I can cut down into tiny pieces the way I desired.
Okay, so I built the bridge, will fit on here. I got my sculptor molds. I also made some ice, which I'm super happy with how it turned out. We're gonna cut that into pieces and I'm gonna put it over the bubbles. This right here, I don't know, this will probably just die. We're gonna do a little rune, maybe some walls, and that's gonna be it, which is actually pretty sad. Next thing that I didn't even think about is, if we put here our modeling compound, we will have maybe a weird edge here, because the modeling compound has some height and then it goes down and up again where the rocks are. This might be an issue too. So maybe I have to use the modeling compound and push it against the rocks, and we have to repaint this. This is not the biggest issue. Okay, but let's get started. We're gonna cut this into pieces and then glue it on the board.
Okay, the video is already pretty long, so I'm gonna explain a few steps here a little bit faster. So, ice shards, cut them into pieces. Before you glue them, put them on the board first, and once you're happy with how they're placed, then you glue them. Also, I have here this paste that gives me a nice wave effect, so I apply this to all the surfaces that have no ice shards. And some dry brushing to give this even a better effect. Then some PVA glue together with the snow powder. For people saying, hey man, with the wave effect paste, why did you really need these ice shards? Won't they cover up the bubbles anyway? This wave paste will dry translucent, so you will still see the bubbles. And then I'm using this modeling compound. Honestly, this works so freaking well. It's very easy to use. It's like a 3-to-1 ratio between water and the paste. Keep in mind to put the paste a little bit on your pieces, so it feels integrated into the diorama. If I put the paste just around it and not a little bit on the bridge, it will just look like you, well, place it on top of it. And that's not the effect we want to have.
Okay, so I have now this modeling compound on it. It's still a tiny bit moist, but this is crazy. Like, this dries so crazy fast and it's getting really goddamn solid, and I think I can paint this already. It almost dries a little bit too fast, if I'm honest with you. I had issues with, I mixed like this, and I couldn't apply the whole paste before it started already to get really hard in the bucket. So working time 15 minutes, yeah, that actually fits. Can stay damp to the touch for 24-48 hours. Okay, but I'm gonna wait a little bit and then I'm gonna paint it. I'm also gonna show you a little bit what else I did. So I added more snow to the ice. We added also some soil. Now keep in mind I didn't brush it off yet, so yes, there's a little bit in the riverbed, stuff that doesn't belong there. I like how the bridge is now integrated in the piece. You can see this now even down here, up here. I mean, it's not painted yet. I still have some space here that I didn't work on. I still have hopes that I can do like a little rune. The tavern is like, absolutely forget about that. And here we are on the other side. Let's see if this focuses. So I dry brushed the ice rocks, or the ice shards. And it looks way better than before now. And I added way more of the soil here, and everywhere where it would naturally gather. Nice, so the next step is gonna be that we're gonna paint all this modeling compound and then dry brush it. Okay, so now let's see, let's have a look at this. This is finally looking like, I don't know, dude, decent at least. This is not the bridge that I actually had in mind, but it will have to do. So I have some of these flames here, these fire shells, these braziers. I think that looks decent, okay? I tried to give this whole thing more life. I also painted the sculptor mold here, the modeling compound. That works nice. I have here now my little ruin. It's honestly not much, okay? This is a little bit sad actually. I'm gonna show you a close-up in a second. Okay, I tried to bring that whole thing to life with more plants, and I'm also starting to add some leaves, so it looks like fall over here. Keep in mind that everything is like mountains, a very rocky terrain. And here we go, this is a small little ruin. I have already the modeling compound. It dried enough so I can paint it. I think it's still a nice addition because alternatively I would just have a rocky surface. And with the wood, which is totally not done by the way yet, it gives you even something else to look at, and it's not just everything rocks or water. So we have this little building there. Of course I had something bigger in mind, but what you're gonna do, I absolutely love this rocky surface here. Gives you really a mountain feeling. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna paint that thing, and then I'm gonna add even more of this stuff here on the whole thing, because this needs to dry overnight so I can seal it tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last day where I can work on this. I know I said I didn't have time, but I painted more of these. So we can add even more leaves because the couple that we have right here, this is kind of, yeah, whatever. I have one issue though, and I don't really know how I can solve this. So this is fine. You can see here we have the epoxy resin and nothing leaked. So this works fine. However, the resin that I used heated up massively. I don't know why. And it melted this thing here that I used to seal the epoxy from leaking. It melted it and it fused with the resin, which is not a big deal here. We're gonna seal this off at the end. This is not standing out too much, so it shouldn't be that much of a deal. However, the other side is a disaster. So it leaked, you can see it here. I can feel it. This is resin. So it went all the way through here. Because it heated up so much, this is one thing. Like I tried to peel it off here, it worked here, and then it's fused. I can't get this off. And the problem is if I have too much material here, and you can see it when you look from the bottom, it got bent out a little bit. So if I put something here to let all of this disappear, you will have a bulge here. So I don't know how to fix that yet. What I absolutely love is how the bridge is now part of the diorama. And it's really hard to tell that we painted this in multiple steps, because obviously you want to paint it in one go.
Okay, honestly, nothing new to see here. We have the modeling compound, we have the ruin, we paint everything black, then we dry brush this in gray and white. Inside, between the wall and the wooden floor that I made out of balsa wood, I put in some PVA glue mixed with water, then again some dirt out of my garden, again with the alcohol to break the surface tension, then again a layer of water and PVA glue to seal everything. And of course then some snow. I try to be careful to not paint on the wood because otherwise this would give stains. And at the end I 3D printed a few pieces for the ruin.
Okay, so this needs to dry now. The dry brushing will only take a couple minutes for that, so I'm not too concerned about this. What I'm going to show you now is a part of my collection of stuff that I can put on the diorama. So I will use on this side a bit of green. I have here leaves for fall. I have also some, regular leaves. I'm going to have a nice mix here. Some of this is already on the diorama. I have more sand, more rocks. I have some plants actually. Some of them I could have used for the diorama actually, but they are not painted, so whatever. I have some roots, like real roots out of the garden. Honestly, why didn't I put them in the river? I don't know. And yeah, the idea is again, have a lot of ice and snow here, and then have a transition going to a little bit of green and fall. And also a lot of snow will be on the riverbed. Whew, and I'm gonna do that now, and that will probably take a while.
The best way to do this is have a dropper bottle with a mix of PVA glue and water again, because with a dropper bottle you can apply it on a big surface very quickly. Then I spread it with a brush and then I applied the snow. I think this is snow from the army painter. Don't forget to seal everything at the end once this is dry with isopropyl alcohol and then another mix with the scenic glue. We're almost done. Day 7, the finish line.
All right, and we're almost done. Now you're probably wondering, where is that magnificent piece? And first of all, I'm not 100% happy with that, but we're gonna talk about this at the end of the video. We need to make the ugly foam disappear. So I bought these huge ass black sheets, and I'm basically gonna cut out the frame of the diorama, glue it on the side, and that's it. that is the last step. I also modified the piece a little bit. I have some, 3D printed props that I put on it. I think it's important to give the piece life, and I kind of failed with that due to the time issue. But first I'm gonna glue this to the sides of the diorama, and then I'm gonna show you the final result.
Can't wait to show you the end result. I used a lot of different types of grass and some 3D props, but we need to get rid of this ugly foam. I rotated the piece actually on the cardboard, then I drew the lines and then I cut it out.
Okay, and that didn't work at all. So my original idea was to take a sheet of plastic in black and glue it on it. But my local stores don't have it in that size because I want a big piece and then cut out like around the edges and glue it on it. If I cut it again, then you will see a line and it will look like garbage. I already expected this. Gluing it with, PVA glue is not ideal. You see it works absolutely fine the moment you glue it on wood. So at first I was like, this is not too bad. But it started to make waves on the foam. So I had to rip everything off and, well, let's say I went for a desperate approach. I don't know if this will work. I don't know how that will look. But yeah, let me show it to you. So yeah, call me crazy, but I used a modeling compound for the whole site. Now this works and it hits the theme of, the rocky structure. I'm just gonna paint that black at the end. Not in the rock structure because it would look weird, but we're just gonna do this black. I like it. I was considering like sanding it down, but then I was like, no, this is the last day. I'm gonna finish this piece today, no matter what. You hear me? Alright, everything's dried now, and honestly, it's okay. It's definitely an alternative. Maybe I can even say this is done on purpose to match the rest of the piece. But honestly, I think having the black plastic sheets would be the best. Or maybe a different glue so I can do it with paper. There is still a lot I would change, and we learned a lot. I think it looks good, especially for like a week, and not even a full-time week. So I'm really happy with that. Learned plenty of stuff. And I would say we have now a look at everything and discuss it a little bit. And that's it for today's crafting video. So, lots of room for improvement, lots of stuff learned that I can apply to the next projects. Honestly, that feels really good. That was way more work than I anticipated, but what you're gonna do. Pleased with the result. Again, keep in mind that this is my first diorama that I ever built, especially with that scale. It's from my Army on Parade playlist, so I'm happy about that. Can't wait to put it into the store. I still have a little bit of painting ahead of me. That's why I had to call it quits for this one. These projects are honestly a never-ending story. I might even do a few things and show you in a different video. For example, I'm thinking about using some glossy varnish for the ice shards and maybe having a few torches in the ruin. As I said, you can never be 100% satisfied with something like that, I think. You will always find something where you can nitpick what you're gonna do. Alright, okay, and with nothing more to say, I think I talked already enough. I hope that you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to, the channel's new, so I'm gonna do a little bit of begging. Maybe drop a like, maybe drop a subscription, would be much appreciated. We're gonna have more in the future, and I can't wait for that.
Thank you for watching. I can't wait to build more, and I can't wait to show you my first painting videos. And again, I hope you enjoyed the video. Obviously, feel free to share it. Exposure is probably the most important thing that this tiny channel needs right now. I see you in the next one. Until then, have a good day and bye bye.